Sentinel Online, now loading the Geekcast radio network of podcasts.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cinema Geeks. I am one of your Cinema Geeks, OptimusSolo, and joining me today is HardCandiMandi. Hello.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going.
It's going?
Yeah.
Collecting your thoughts?
I am sure. Yeah, I'm at a loss.
Also here is MovieRevolt Dan. Good day, sir.
Good day. Good day.
Or maybe not a good day, but we'll try to make it one. And FridleyCent. Hello, Matt.
Hi.
And we're all here, anxious and awaiting and excited to continue our video game spotlight. I guess I have to be the one that claims the coming up with this idea to do this, so you can direct all your angst, hate mail, and anger towards me. The other three are innocent of this. But we are continuing our video game spotlight today, and today's topic is none other than the 2005 science fiction action horror film, as described online as Doom here. So Doom, directed by, I don't know how to say his name, Andrei Barkowiak, screenplay by David Callahan and Wesley Strick. And just so you know where it's coming from and kind of the background here, originally film rights for this film were with Universal Pictures and Columbia Pictures, but they both had expired. So the software signed a deal with Warner Brothers, and then eventually it went back to Universal and is an international co-production of the United States, the United Kingdom, Czech Republic, and Germany. So that should tell you kind of the background of the smooth ride to the big screen that Doom had. And for those of you that are not familiar with the people that I mentioned as far as directors and screenwriters, the director for Doom only directed 5 films in his career. Romeo Must Die in 2000, Exit Wounds in 2001, Cradle to the Grave in 2003, Doom, and then his last directorial job was in 2009, Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li.
So he liked DMX.
Liked video games. Has not directed anything since 2009. One of the writers has a decent history. He did things like, no, I'm just kidding. He didn't do anything good. He did Godzilla in 2014. He wrote for The Expendables and The Expendables 2, and that was about it. Doom was his first screenplay experience. And the other guy who was part of the screenplay has a little bit better of a track record, I guess. He did Cape Fear, The Saint, Arachnophobia, and then in the 2000s it kind of went downhill. He did The Glass House, Doom, A Nightmare on Elm Street in 2010, and The Loft in 2015, which did not get well received. So those are the people behind the film, and the film, of course, stars none other than The Rock himself, Carl Urban, Rosamund Pike, and a few other people. So that's all the background you need. We'll get to more of the numbers a little bit later. But I want to bring Dan on first in this one because Matt, Amanda, and myself watched this together. So we know what our immediate reaction was and what our thoughts on the film were. So I want Dan to go first so he's not tainted by anything we say. So Dan, what did you think about Doom just in general?
Well, I as someone who did play Doom a great deal growing up as a kid, like that was one of the main games. I was probably too young to play it, but I did play it as a kid. I remember I had to log into DOS back when that was a thing, and in order to actually gear it up and boot it up, and I actually saw this in theaters at the time.
Wow.
So, not a proud notch in my belt by any means, the stretch of imagination. But I had some hope. I remember at that time, I saw some interviews with The Rock, and he seemed really excited about this. He seemed to be knowledgeable of the property for the most part. They made a big deal over the fact that the BFG gun was going to be in it and all that. But no, considering the fact that we're just got done watching the House of the Dead and Alone in the Dark, which are two legitimate, which are both in the running for probably worst movie of all time for me that I've ever seen. This was not nearly that bad. It was regularly bad. If that it just it was nice just to watch a movie in the series that was, again, that is just normal bad. Like, where it's like, oh, okay, this is just doesn't work for reasons most bad movies don't work. And it's like I also want to say it's awful. There's some actually, I think there's like a tracing of good movie here. There are a lot of influences, obviously, from everything from Alien to Predator to other zombie films that are kind of forced in, and I think that's the problem. Like they trace the outline of all these different things, and they have the outlines, but all the details are completely jumbled and messed up. I do think they did take some chances, especially in the later half. Like I remember when I was in the theater being surprised with the fate of Rock's character, and not knowing Carl Urban at the time, had no idea it would go the way it did.
Right.
But I mean, there are a lot of problems with it. It's not a good movie, but I think like there are places where you can have fun, and I think there are like the cast is actually pretty strong. There's a lot of legitimate actors here, maybe not working with the best material, but I would say, looking at the video game movies that we've gone to so far, I wouldn't put the I mean, best is a strong word just in general, but to me it's like middle of the road for video game movies. It's nowhere near the bottom. It's not like one I would say I would call at all like Mortal Kombat, which is probably the cream of the crop for me right now, which is a sad statement of affairs. But yeah, so I would say this is just a bad movie, but at least it's not dreadful.
And how well do you think it represented the game that you remember playing so much?
Not really. I mean, there's the first person sequence that just does not look very good. It just seems like it just didn't go all the way with it. Like, it's in an alien world instead of being in a demon world. I mean, I don't know if it takes things from the later games, because I only played the PC stuff. I didn't play much of the, like, I think there was one from Nintendo 64, and there was some other ones from the older, more of the newer generation consoles. So I don't know if it took some of that stuff, but none of the creatures really, to me, resembled much of what the creatures did. They looked a little bit more just generic looking. It's not like Doom had an amazing plot story. It was just a dude fighting in hell. But like, it almost felt like they were getting there potentially, but not all the way. So it like I said, I feel like Doom, like if I watched this movie and I didn't know what it was called, I didn't know anything about it, and you told me at the end, oh, that's in relation to a video game, what video game would you think it's relation to? I don't think Doom could pop in my mind.
Fair enough. Matt, have you played any of the games besides, or the original, or any of the future games, or what was your take as far as how well it translated the game?
Yeah, I've definitely played the original Doom, and I've played Doom 3, which 90% that's what this movie's based on. That's set on Mars, Hell Portal. It doesn't follow it beat for beat, but it's definitely... I mean, Doom 3, the game, came out in 2004. This movie came out in 2005. I don't think there's any... Like, it's not going out on a limb saying that there's a huge correlation there. Like, it does not resemble the game really well. Here's the thing. This movie should have been like the remake of Doom that came out a year or two ago, where it's just one guy. It's more action, less horror. Even not that this was hugely horrifying coming from a guy who hates horror movies. It was not that scary. They should. It does not resemble. Some of the monsters do look like pretty analogous to some of the Doom monsters, but they're done in such a way, and they don't come from the same origin as the Doom monsters do. So, like, I would say it's like a 2 out of 10 as far as following the Doom lore.
Amanda, did you play the Doom game growing up at all?
Oh my god, I tried to play the PC version, I don't know which one, really young, but I can't do, like, the first person where it's, like, a bunch of freaking walls. Like, all I remember, it was, like, you could see the dude's hand, and the gun or whatever, and then a bunch of brick walls. Like, that's all I remember seeing, and it just was stupid to me. And so yeah.
Then the first person sequence at the end of this movie, did you see
I was
that?
asleep already.
You were asleep by that point.
That point.
Yeah, that's about as close as it comes to me to somewhat resembling the game, but even that was not well done. I didn't play Doom growing up. I played Wolfenstein for the IBM before Doom ever existed, which was basically the same game, except for instead of in hell and doing monsters, you're fighting Nazis and going after Hitler. And I actually enjoyed Wolfenstein as a game. It's basically the same game, so it's not too much different to go off that. I didn't know what Doom was, and I saw people play it, but it just wasn't intriguing to me for any reason. But yeah, I'm with Matt. I think maybe like a 2 out of 10, because you do have some going through different tunnels and hallways, and you do have these monsters. But outside of that, it doesn't seem too similar to the game. I think what Dan said is pretty accurate. If you watch this and then try to come up with it after the fact without seeing the title, I don't know how many people would land on Doom right away. You'd say something like, oh, it's, a first-person shooter of some type, but I don't know if you'd be able to identify the actual property. So Dan said this movie for him is kind of middle of the road. It's bad, but not as bad as some of the things we've seen. Matt, where do you stand on initial reaction on Doom and the quality of it?
I think Dan hit it on the head with right in the middle, because it ain't no Alone in the Dark, nor is it anywhere near the top like a Mortal Kombat or even a Street Fighter, even.
Amanda, agree or disagree?
At least with Alone in the Dark and House of the Dead, there was so much like stupid, pointless crap to talk about. But with this movie, like, they're just, I don't even know what I'm gonna say about it, because it was just blah to me, blah blah blah. And at least there was other crap to shit on in those other movies, and it was fun to shit on it. But this, like, I feel bad for The Rock. I had some pretty high hopes, and so this is, I don't know. I see quality of movie, it definitely wasn't as bad as those, so I would put it above Alone in the Dark and House of the Dead, but just, yeah, I don't even know.
I've been struggling with this one. I don't know if it was just because it was more of a name brand, or because it had a bigger cast, or legit people involved, or Clint Howard's brother, Clint Howard's brother? Ron Howard's brother, Clint Howard. I'm sorry that I'm not calling you legitimate, but you have The Rock, Rosamund Pike, Carl Urban, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if it was just because I was expecting something a little bit more fun, like we got with some of those other Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat style type films, something along those lines. I don't know if that was it or something else, but I almost had more of a adverse reaction to this one than I did for some of the previous films. I've been struggling for the last 3 days to try to place it. I'm convinced that House of the Dead is a better film than Alone in the Dark by the slightest of margins. I was going back and forth on if Doom was better than those two films, or if it was somewhere in the middle, or if it was just the slightest of margin, just barely above those two, because I think these three films are easily the worst three that we've seen so far. Maybe I'll have to go back and remember some of the other films, because I have a tendency to put some of these films directly out of my memory after I watch them. I remember the first three we did, and then everything else is a blur so far. But I actively disliked this film, so I don't know. We'll talk through it, but I don't know if I'm even willing to put it in the middle. I think it was near the bottom for me. I just did not enjoy anything about this film whatsoever. Let's get into, since we talked about the cast a little bit, let's go back to Dan here, but let's go into the characters, the actors, and kind of how that ran down. Who worked for you, who didn't work for you, and what did you think as the actual acting and the characters went?
Honestly, I think the only character that at all works in any shape or form is Carl Urban's character, because there is somewhat of a complexity, I use that term very loosely, to his character. Now, there is some surprises with how they treat him, some backstory and character development to the slightest edge. I like The Rock. I find him interesting as an actor. In this, he was just really, I think he used the term bland, and that was it. He was, there are some moments where he used The Rock, and by the end, when he kind of goes off the deep end, that was a lot of fun, and that became enjoyable. But before that, he's rather forgettable. And I had a tendency to really a lot of the other team members or side characters there wasn't much to them beyond their name, and I think it was like a generic, it was like a G.I. Joe type of thing where it's just like okay, this guy's Duke, and that's all you need to know about him, and he's kid because he's a kid, and this other guy's a kind of a pedophile, creepy dude, so I don't know, I don't know what we're gonna call him.
We did name one of the guys Tim Roth wannabe, because that one guy seemed like he was like, they wanted Tim Roth, they could not afford him, and they were like, this guy will play that part. I swear, he was like perfect. I can't remember what the hell they called him, but it was like this part was written for him, but they could not get him.
Yeah. So yeah, the characters were kind of forgettable for the most part, but yeah.
What do you think, Amanda? Did you like Carl Urban the best, or?
Yeah, I think he was the most believable. I mean, Rosamund Pike wasn't too bad either. I mean, as far as what she was needed for, and I think her motivations were believable, but a lot of the side characters were super forgettable, except for the guy who was like cutting himself because of Jesus, and that's about it.
Matt, agree, disagree? What do you think of the characters and the actors?
Oh man, I think Carl's probably the better guy here. Like, I think The Rock could have played a real good hero, especially at this time, because like in the early 2000s, that's when he made that turn from the heel to being the people's champ. And like, could you imagine in like 1992 Hulk Hogan being the villain in your movie? Like, maybe that's bad marketing, guys.
For sure. Another thing that we have to talk about a little bit that I had like 4 different times in my notes is the technology that's present in this environment in 2046, because they introduced this as taking place in 2046. They immediately have to download something from a computer, and the line of dialogue says it's going to take 30 minutes to download. They also, at different times, show VHS tapes, CRT monitors, and some pretty archaic walkie-talkies. Matt, what did you think of the technology that was present in this 2046 world?
I think if you're doing a Doom movie, the tech you need just randomly placed colored keys. Because that game was about getting the right key to open the right door to fight the right demon, and not about going to collect data from really old computers that don't really make sense in your universe. But they were researching an ancient, long-dead civilization, so maybe just they were using the computers of those dead Martians, and that's why they were old.
Dan, they also used some things called nano walls, and then there was obviously the transportation system to get there. What did you think of the world they created for Doom and any of the technological or visual aspects?
There's an interesting idea there, but the execution was just poor. Like the portal arc thing, it looked like it was taken out of Abyss, and it looked worse than Abyss, even though Abyss came out like 15 years earlier. And I did kind of like the nano wall idea again, and there were moments where they used that effectively, but for the most part, really not much was done with it. I also think it's interesting too that there was a line about how we haven't finished mapping the human genome yet, and by that time we had, so it's like they just apparently weren't up to date with their biology. So it was like, no, that's actually, and then that was 40 years in the future too. So it just seems like they should. Maybe Twitter didn't exist, so it's harder to look up that stuff, I guess.
They're imagining that something happened between then and now that like we had to start from scratch again, so we're behind. I guess I don't know, but yeah. And the nano wall was interesting. It was somewhat decently done, I think, but having the guy immediately afraid of it seemed kind of odd at first, because I'm like, why is he afraid of this wall? And I think Matt, you go ahead.
So what's also confusing about that arc thing was when they had that moment when they first use it, and they talk about like how it cuts a person in half, and then like we see someone getting cut in half, and I'm like, who was that? What did that? And then it was a flashback, but there was no indication whatsoever that was a flashback. It just kind of happened. Like, who was that guy? Like, why did that? And then that's because I'm like, they seem really calloused by the fact that one of their guys just got cut in half. but it was really the dude that we were looking at, and I was really confused.
And what's even worse or better about this getting cut in half in this super gritty, grimdark future reality horror movie is that the guy didn't get cut in half so much as just his ass got teleported to another dimension, and so like his legs got left behind and his upper body got teleported, but really it was his ass.
True.
Matt, you brought up another good point when we were watching this, that they have, these nanowalls to kind of get from one place to the other quickly, yet the entire setting for this seems like it's 4 hallways.
Yeah.
Like, they're instantly able to get to everywhere, yet they're using this wall to, like, get from one room to the next, it seemed like. Like, I don't even know if it was necessary or if I was just missing something, because it seemed like the smallest set known to man.
I mean, maybe they could only afford 1 hallway, and they're like, we'll just kind of change things around, and it'll be 20 I think that the nano wall was there just so that they could give the one character an interesting character trait of, hey, I don't like that technology, like, because it wasn't like he was against all technology. He didn't like nano walls.
He wasn't afraid of the one that cuts people in half.
No, the way more scary one that is known to have issues that we
just. And the nanowall didn't even necessarily kill anybody. That guy, that was hilarious. Probably the moment I laughed most in the movie, when that creature is stuck in the nanowall, and then we go back to it like scenes later, and you were expecting that individual just died, and it's still like stuck in there and like moving its arms, like 4 scenes later. Like, it was almost hysterical.
There was an homage to Winnie the Pooh. I think that's what that was.
But yeah, I mean, it's weird because you seem like you only get to see like 2 or 3 hallways, and then when they go into that first-person shooter mode at the end, all of a sudden it becomes infinitely like huge. Like, they're going down all these different, they're going up, they're going down, they're going around things that we have never seen up to that point in the movie. So it's like they created extra scenery just for the first-person shooter sequence, which was kind of weird. What other kind of things? Anything good, Dan? You said, it's not necessarily as bad as some of the stuff we've seen. So what were the good aspects of Doom that you wanted to bring out?
Wow, that's the question of the day now, isn't it? I will say, I do like, I mentioned it at the top, I do like the fact, yeah, it's kind of weird that The Rock became the villain.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of like that gutsy choice. That's actually kind of cool. I did like the line of, when he's getting dragged away, of he's not supposed to die. It was a nice little meta moment. I felt like it, it's on the nose, and so that was, to me, like a legitimate takeaway. I did like the relationship between Rosamund Pike and Carl Urban. I thought they had a, legitimately like a decent chemistry. I mean, they're brother and sister, but you know what I mean. But
right.
But,
although this movie, I mean, there was all kinds of kind of weird, skeezy dialogue and allusions to all kinds of different sexual things, which was kind of weird the way they were placed in that film. Like, it's like talking about big things and I don't know.
We're looks like legitimate like demon or like alien creature trying to eat us, but we still got time to do other things, so I'm going to try to hit on you now. It's just, that was a little weird.
Like, there's a blatant attempt to look down a shirt at one point. Like, there's, I don't know. Like, they reference somebody having a thing with 3 she-boys at some point. I don't know. There's just like,
That was the thing. That was, like, right at the start, it left a really bad taste in the mouth because it's like that character was so unlikable, and some of the stuff, like, it felt like they're trying to push the envelope of the character, but they pushed it too far. And the fact that like other people were just accepting of him and his like really unnecessary behavior made you not like them either. So you just had a bunch of people you really didn't like all that much. So
right.
So when they ended up dying, and like, yeah, well, they're kind of, I guess they kind of were supposed to tie into the end a little bit, and like the way this chromosome affected you or what have you, but still. But yeah, so that's the only positive I can really point to that was there.
You brought up chromosomes, Matt. They try to depict in this story that a 24th chromosome, when inserted into a human, has the ability to either make it evil or superhuman or a monster based on if the person is inherently evil or good. I know you had some comments about the chromosomes, the science of all of that. What did you think of that angle in the story?
Yeah, like, humans don't have the most chromosomes on Earth. Like, dogs have something like 70, or, like, horses, one of those. Like, you just Google, like, how many chromosome pairs do these things have? A lot of things have more than humans, and none of them are Superman or Doomsday. So I don't quite know where that logic comes from. Is it, like, because they didn't say, like, they don't reference science in any real or meaningful way. They just say gibberish and then go, they don't have Google yet. And it's like, no, dude, they have Google, just like they know the genome years ago. Like, they just, it's maddening to listen to. That said, it's still not as bad as Alone in the Dark, guys.
Yeah, that's the it didn't have Tara Reid in it, so there's that. We had give me Rosamund Pike over Tara Reid any day, and I'll be happy.
Amanda,
Upgrade.
Any good things or bad things that you wanted to point out about Doom that haven't come up yet?
Bro, no. I only have bad stuff, really. But little baby Rocky, he was so cute and little.
When was it?
Rock? He was like a little baby version of
just
himself.
Seeing him back in the day. Gotcha. I did like the fact that they somehow, I don't know if it was a visual trick or what, but they tried to make The Rock look like the same size as everybody else in this crew, and he clearly isn't. Like, there was some people that were not muscular, not big, not tall, that somehow they did some, like, visual tricks or set tricks, or I don't know if they had them on, like, stilts or something, but, like, there's scenes where The Rock is looking, like, eye to eye with these people, and it's like, no, The Rock was never small. So it was kind of odd to see that. Besides, like, one or two dudes that were pretty big in this film, everybody else should have been dwarf compared to The Rock. So that was kind of odd thing visually as well. Matt or Dan, anything else that you wanted to bring up as far as notes about the story, plot, sequences that you found humorous or anything like that?
One thing that really bugged me was how bad the lighting was. I felt like it was... I thought at first it was like my computer setting, but it was just everything was so dark and like unnecessarily dark. And it's not like it made it more atmospheric or scary or anything like that. It just made things more jumbled and hard to see. It was just like, can someone just get a flashlight? Or it was just the lighting was just really poor, which is, again, it was still better than Alone in the Dark, but it was just one element you would think for a movie that has a bigger budget like this that they'd be able to handle that a lot more efficiently.
And at one point they're like walking around in the dark, even though there's nothing wrong with the lights in the place. Like, they're like going room to room in the dark, and like all of a sudden I think Rosamund Pike's character or somebody comes in and just like flips the light on. Like, here's some lights, guys. Like, you didn't have to be like roaming around in the dark here. Matt, one thing that was big about Doom was always the guns, and all the different guns and upgrading from one gun to the other. How do you think they handled that? Because we didn't get to see a whole lot of variety of guns. We did get to see, the BFG gun, I guess is what it was, for a second, and then it disappeared, and then it came back later. But what did you think about the way they incorporated guns into the whole thing?
You could call it the BFG. I just call it Chekhov's gun, because that's exactly what it was. It was just like, hey, we're going to show this thing early so that we can use it later, right, guys? Like, it did so many weird things, like, by the books, almost like someone went to TV tropes and just hit random page 3 times and went, we got to do those 3 things. But, like, they find a gun, and
use it terribly.
And it's a really just like a throwaway thing where it's all like, yeah, it's an archaeological dig, and they're trying to, study human anatomy, and they're looking at this ancient culture, and also there's a weapons lab, but don't go there. And it's like, well, why is there a weapons lab? Like, we're gonna go there first. Oh, hey, look, there's a weapon. And even though, like, we've got all of these guns and explosives and stuff, it's like locked in a locker, so we can't get it. I don't know. This whole facility is getting taken over by demon zombies, but we can't get this really cool gun. And then, like, 2 hours later, he's like, I got the gun, I want to shoot a wall. Oh, it's really good at shooting walls. Like, I'll put that away until right before the credits. Like, it's maddening. Like, none of the things like get you excited or look forward to seeing later in the movie, even though you know they're going to come up. Like, from the moment anyone says anything in this movie, you know they're telegraphing so hard. Like, it's like, oh, this is a really big gun, and then it's like, oh, he's gonna get that gun later. Oh, I really hate these walls. Oh, that someone's gonna get killed by a wall later. Like it's just so orchestrated and obvious.
It was frustrating too because he gets this gun, uses it in a completely terrible way because he doesn't understand what kind of fire it's going to do, so it like blows the whole wall out or whatever, and I think it hurts one of his own people or something. And then like almost a scene later, there's like an entire group that needs to be shot with this gun because it would be perfect for this instance, and he immediately doesn't have it anymore, and he's just using a machine gun type thing. It's just, yeah, it was very maddening as far as the guns go, I think, as well. Dan, you brought up the budget and get into a little bit of the box office numbers. Does anybody know what the budget for this film was? Guess?
I've looked it up.
You looked it up?
50 million? 50 million?
The budget, it was $60 million. So $60 million budget. Opening weekend, it made 15, and it went on to make a domestic total of 28 and a worldwide total of 56. So
that was 10 of those dollars. So
so even if you take the international, the worldwide, box office gross, 56, it's still under its 60 million budget. It basically was one of the quickest. It was not around for long. It was basically in theaters for like 3 weeks, and then it was gone. It spent 3 more weeks like in limited theaters, and then officially was 100% gone. So a 6-week run at the theaters with really only 3 of the weeks where it was in more than like a couple hundred theaters. So. Not very good. They did some exit polling, I guess, or they did some type of try to get some data. Here's some numbers for you as far as who was going to watch this film. 69% of people that went and saw Doom were male. So 69% male audience.
How do they know this?
They came up with it some way. 61% of them were under 25. And 59% of them had played the game before. So if you weren't under 25, a male, and had played Doom back in 2005, you probably did not go watch this film, according to Box Office Mojo. Yeah, not very good. As far as Rotten Tomatoes go, 19% based on 130 reviews. 19%. Also got a nomination for a Razzie Award for Worst Actor, Dwayne Johnson, but lost in that year to Rob Schneider. Anybody want to take a guess as to what movie Rob Schneider was in that won the Razzie that year?
Hot Chick?
So many. The Animal?
Is Deuce Bigelow 2?
Deuce Bigelow, European Gigolo.
Yeah!
Rob Schneider beats The Rock from Doom for the Razzie for that year. But even Rock is not, he's not blind to what they did here. 2009 interview described the film as an example of trying and failing to do a good video game adaptation, and that it was a cautionary tale of what, quote, not to do. As far as that goes. Interesting, I pulled up an article from 2005 that I don't know if this was a Box Office Mojo article or somebody that they kind of pulled it from, but it was like a week after Doom came out, how they usually do like their little box office summary and they go through all the different movies. Here's an interesting kind of tidbit at the end. This was written by Brandon Gray, October 24th, 2005. Doom is yet another movie featuring The Rock to disappoint. After the former wrestler was pumped up as the next big action star, Arnold Schwarzenegger passed the baton at the beginning of The Rundown in 2003, while The Rock's first vehicle, the Scorpion King, did muscular business. Follow-ups, The Rundown and Walking Tall, were relatively flabby, and Doom will likely be his weakest yet. So I thought that was interesting, just an immediate takedown of like, hey, you guys think The Rock's going to be this big action star, and he's terrible because of The Rundown, Walking Tall, and Doom. I don't know if you ever went back and read that article, but it just took a while, guys. It just took a little while for The Rock to kind of seize the action star, right? He's there at this point.
Pretty firmly. He learned to basically, you don't start a franchise, you just jump on one and make it better, I guess. So
exactly. We'll see how this year treats him.
He needed to get bigger. It is like, I think Amanda mentioned that he was small in this, and only The Rock could make The Rock look small.
Yeah, man, this is another thing that they were saying. Doom was merely known as a bleak game about killing creatures with big guns, chainsaws, and other weapons. A flimsy premise even by video game movie standards. The final product was too steroidal to attract females, the demographic that drives most horror hits, and too hokey with the look and feel of a bad 80s sci-fi movie to be taken serious by anyone but video game fans.
Bro, if they can't even make Assassin's Creed work as a movie, Doom had no chance.
I guess not. So let's go around and give final thoughts and ranking as far as your score goes out of 10 for Doom. Let's start with Amanda. Final thoughts on Doom, and what score would you give it?
I haven't even given any thoughts on this whole
You've been
time.
mum.
I've just been here. I've been moral support for you guys. Give your thoughts.
You're just lucky we didn't make you rewatch the last 10 minutes of this film.
Oh, God. My brain shut off. It's not having it. Oh, man.
And this is interesting because it's somewhat like...
He asked me for my thoughts. I've been silent this entire time. And I start talking, and you cut me off. Shut your mouth.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to give this movie a 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10 from Amanda. Matt, what do you think? Final thoughts on what score would you give it?
Ooh, I mean, it's not good, but it's not the worst thing we've watched. Like, it's not even the worst. Like, it's not even one of the like, it's so I don't know. It's not that bad.
It wasn't the worst video game that came out that year.
What else came out that year?
Alone in the Dark.
Oh, really? Hell, man, it's not Alone in the Dark 2 either. Like, it's not even... Like, there's worse ones that have come afterwards, so just look forward to that, guys. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. Like, it's got some fundamental problems, and it's not that entertaining, but it's not like it's got major issues. It's just... It's amateurish.
All right, fair enough. Dan, what do you think? Final thoughts on what score would you give Doom?
Man. Yeah, like I said, I think the biggest issue with Doom is it has, like, the framework of ideas. Like, it's like a guy who clearly watched a lot of sci-fi and horror films and thought, that's cool. I think I can do that. And then didn't realize, like, oh, you actually need to have some originality. There's actually some, like, really legitimate, like, rip-offs, and not homages, because homages require some sort of talent. This was just completely rip-offs of Alien, and, like, uncreative ones, too. Like, the tongue thing, the demons would throw out. I'm like, really? We're just going to not even try with this? Like, if you took this framework and, like, gave it to a director like Del Toro... because it's like some of the creatures kind of reminded me of some of the designs that he does with, like, vampires.
Mm-hmm.
You could have something great, but you had this instead. I'd actually go 5 out of 10 because I think it's extremely middle of the road. It's not offensively bad. I wasn't, like, hating myself for watching it like we've had for a few of these films. So it wasn't, like, super bland to me, like something like the movie that I forgot its name with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Star Commander.
Wing Commander.
Wing Commander. There you go. It's utterly forgettable. So there's actually moments I do remember, good or bad, in this one. So I'll go 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think another film that it seemed like it was ripping off to me was the Resident Evil film. It seemed like it was very familiar as far as the premise goes. Like, it was almost taking verbatim what they were setting up at the beginning of Resident Evil, with having to go in and, where the scientists were, and everybody was kind of barred off on and trying to keep everything secluded and all that type of jazz. So it reminded me a lot, and Resident Evil was obviously a much better film in video game terms, at least. I think I'll go with a 3 out of 10 for me. I actively dislike this film, and I don't know if it was just because I was hoping that The Rock would bring something to the doldrums of this video game series, and he didn't necessarily fail, but everything around him and the script and the direction and the story all failed. So it was disappointing for me, and I couldn't get behind hardly anything in this. I will say that I do think it's a slightest of notches above House of the Dead and Alone in the Dark, but I don't know if I could put it above anything else. I think, Dan, you have the closest with maybe like Wing Commander. I think those two are kind of on the same level for me. It's kind of in that next stage after the UA Bowl films. So not a big fan of this one at all. And that means we are done with Doom and we're done with 2005. Next, we get to go to 2006, which is up to this point the year with the most video game films that we've covered, because we're going to get 3 different films from 2006 in this series. We're going to start with Blood Rain, which came out in January of 2006. Then we're going to move to Silent Hill, which came out of April 2006.
Which I really enjoy, by the way.
And then DOA, Dead or Alive, September 2006. So those are the 3 video game films from 2006. It seems like year after year here in the mid-2000s, they started to come out with more and more video game films. So, Matt, what's your anticipation level for the films that we'll be covering from 2006? Blood Rain, Silent Hill, and DOA.
Oh, man. Mixed emotions, my friends, because I love Blood Rain. Like, it's a fun movie to watch with people around, and I've got all 3 of them. Silent Hill is probably the one I'm anticipating liking the least, because it's as far as video game movies go, it might be the number 1. It's like in the top 3 or 5, but that also means that it's scary as shit, which is not what I want. And then DOA I've heard is serviceable and pretty okay, so we'll get through it.
Dan, how excited are you? Let me give you the quick preview of the Rotten Tomato scores we're about to get to. I won't say which movie is which, but we have the highest movie we're talking about in 2006 had a 34%, and then we had a 29% in the middle, and we also have a 4% coming towards us.
Man, 4%. Awesome. I'm guessing not Spirited Away. That's not the right movie. I'm guessing Silent Hill is the highest rated. And then maybe Blood Rain. I don't know. But, I'm not. Uwe Boll did 2 of these, right? He did Blood Rain and DOA. Am I wrong?
I don't know if this person you speak of. I've tried to eliminate.
I don't know. I'm somewhat looking forward to Silent Hill because I do remember seeing the trailers and being intrigued by it. And I think my wife actually likes that movie, so I am curious about watching the other 2. I am dreading. Though Ben Kingsley is in, Blood Rain, so we have something to watch and feel bad about.
Uwe Boll did not do DOA.
I think he did.
No.
There you go.
Someone named J.F. Lawton.
So these
That's
games
really
are
him.
That's really him under a different title. So these games are based off of a Majesco game, a Konami game, and a Tecmo game. Amanda, are you all about these 3?
Okay, not all 3. I don't even know anything about Dead or Alive, but Blood Rain I'm intrigued by because Matt loves it, and we hear nothing but good things. And I love vampires. Is it vampires?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Nice. So I'm on board with that. Silent Hill I really, really like. Super cool, super freaking creepy. Matt, you're probably not going to like it because it is really freaking creepy. But it's a great movie. Like, just a movie, even if it's not based on a video game, I really like it.
So you've seen Silent Hill. Matt, you've seen Blood Rain?
Yeah,
Did he owns 3 of them.
That's what I thought. And Dan, you've not seen any of them, correct?
Nope. Thank God for this.
I've not seen any of these either, so we will be going down this road together, and I guess checking off these films that we can now say that we've watched. We've been there, done that. And why are we doing this, folks? We're doing this so you don't have to. So let us know what your thoughts are on our thoughts on Doom. You can do that by going to the website, geekcastradio.com, finding the episode post, and letting us know if you feel our pain, if you've seen any of these films, if you like any of these films that we're dissing on, or what you have to say about the ones that are coming up. You can also interact with us directly through Twitter. The show handle is @CinemaGeekcast. My individual Twitter, if you want to tweet to me, is @OptimusSolo. If you want to get at Amanda, what's your Twitter handle?
@HardCandiMandi, eyes, no lies.
Dan, how about your Twitter?
I'm at MovieRevolt.
And Matt, what about you?
I'm at FridleyCent.
So we'll be back to get to those 2006 films. In between now and then, though, you'll hear us also giving a few more thoughts on our Miyazaki spotlight. We have a few films left to cover there, and we'll be getting closer and closer to our top 10 films of all time as we continue our top 100 countdown that we started back on episode 100. So hopefully you're enjoying 1, 2, or all of these spotlights that we're doing. But until then, tune in next week for another chance to listen to the Cinema Geeks.